Some ties are settled, but most aren't in the Champions League round of 16. There's still plenty of betting value to be found on the slate, and our panel of betting experts will aim to do just that. We'll discuss Aston Villa's chances of progression and a potential goal fest in Barcelona before a first on the pod. Two of our panel going for opposing sides of an Asian handicap line. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Daniele Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How are you doing, Sam?
Hello, Dan. Yeah, all good. How are you?
I'm great. Good weekend of football, but Champions League, I mean, I love the round of 16. I think it's like some of the best football you get in the competition. Some really good mismatches and, some big games in this slate, isn't there?
Yeah, back to it. I think we did pretty well on the pod last week, but in terms of like a betting heat on the whole, I think bettors would have found it quite tough last week. My personal bets didn't do too well at all. I think the only winner I had was Real Madrid to win. All of the other games, I fancy Club Brugge at home to Villa. Obviously, that got away from them in the last 10 minutes, which I thought was a little bit unfortunate because they were quite good in that game. Barcelona and Benfica looked for all the world that would be what I think Scott might have said, over 8.5 goals. And that was 1-0. So, yeah, there were a few pitfalls, but again, really interesting round. And the second leg, some of them are poised magnificently, so it should be a good one.
Yeah, most certainly will be. Joining us again, Daniele, Fisichella. How are we doing?
Hi, all good, thank you. Well, it's very interesting because obviously now with the UEFA changing a bit of the fixtures and the calendar, the second legs come quite soon, straight away. In the past, there was always a 2 weeks break, so perhaps more narrative. But I think it will be interesting to see how much of the first leg narrative will carry into the second leg. This is something I think we need to expect, to foresee. Although there are some big names missing through injuries in all camps, so obviously I think that will change. That will change quite a lot.
Yeah, one big name missing from the pod is Scott Thornton, so filling in. Mr. Jack Wright, how are we doing? First appearance since October.
Is it really? Wow, how time flies. It's great to be back. Thanks for having me. And looking forward to this one. Absolutely.
As I said at the start, we've got a first on the pod, which is two punters going for two different sides of an Asian handicap line. I think we'll leave that for the end, let people warm up to it, and if it does get a bit feisty, we can just cut the recording and get it out before things come to blows. So let's get on with the tips. First half, 3 singles. Sam, kick us off.
Going for Inter Milan versus Feyenoord. I'm going for under 3.0 Asian goals at 1.72. Me and Daniele went for under 2.75 goals last week, which romped home fairly comfortably, even if there was a penalty to make it 3-0 to Inter in the second half. But luckily for me and Daniele, Kalinoglu wasn't on the pitch to take said penalty, and then Zielinski fluffed his line. So that worked out well for us. Ended 2-0. Feyenoord had one pretty good chance, but other than that, they never really threatened in the game. They mustered 0.5 XG at home, and it did feel like that as well. Here, obviously, they need 2 goals to take this to extra time for any hope of progression. That will put some people off, I think, an unders play, but it's one of those games where just because a team needs to score X amount of goals, it doesn't mean that A, they will, or B, they're capable of doing so at the San Siro. And I think that Inter might well score at home. You would imagine that they have enough to score here, and that would rubber stamp the work they did in the first leg. If Inter get a goal, then the tie is done, and they can focus on maybe preserving some energy ahead of an away trip to Atalanta on the weekend. And that Atalanta match, who they just beat Juventus 4-0 away from home on the weekend, big result. That's a big game for Inter, one that Inzaghi and the players will be conscious of. It might not dictate that starting lineup, but as the game progresses, maybe we will see Inter take a stance that is to keep hold of the ball in situations where they can't be hurt in transition, make Feyenoord work for it, keep possession, but do so with like a defensive mindset, like to see out the game, something which Inter Milan are very, very good at. And overall, Dan, I just think Inter looked too good. You could tell Feyenoord are really quite handy in possession. They move the ball quite well and with purpose at times, but with that squad, with the injuries they've got, these two legs against Inter, it's just one step too far for what is a depleted Eredivisie team that are also struggling domestically right now. So in the end, I think Inter will progress quite comfortably. The odds suggest that they will do that. And again, I don't think we're going to see many goals in the game. So Inter Milan v Feyenoord under 3 Asian goals at 1.72.
Yeah, Betsy is just about on your side here. Projected goal total is 2.98 with 2.23 for Inter, 0.76 for Feyenoord away from home. Obviously, this isn't new for Feyenoord. They played AC Milan in the playoff before that. Obviously, first leg result was a lot better, but they went to the San Siro. They got a goal. They progressed through the tie. Do you think that can you take anything from that? The fact that Feyenoord have done this so recently, or are you looking at the first leg and thinking, if Feyenoord were going to get something from this tie, they really had to get it done in the first leg? They are scoring goals away from home. Feyenoord, they've scored, I think, in their last 6 Champions League games away from home. Are you expecting that to continue, or do you think this gap is kind of unassailable here and Inter can just shut this down?
I don't want to say it's unassailable because we've seen things, we've seen some pretty special things happen in the Champions League. But yeah, yes, granted, they did do something similar against AC Milan and they're scoring quite frequently away from home. But I think we just got to focus on, this is Inter Milan. And to be fair, they just conceded 2 goals to Monza on the weekend, which is a bit unnerving. But Inter Milan in the Champions League, we mentioned it last week, they're really quite reliable. They don't allow many really high quality goal scoring opportunities at all. Like we said, 0.4 XG in the first leg at home. Are they going to go to San Siro, get on the ball, dominate the game in those kind of spaces? I just can't see it. And I fully trust Inter to keep it tight. I trust Inzaghi to come up with a game plan to make sure that happens. And, Inter don't need to score. They just need to, like I said, keep possession, keep it away from their own goal, make sure that they can't be hurt in those kind of situations where, Feyenoord can turn the ball over and have 3-on-3 or something. That doesn't need to happen. So I expect we won't see those kind of opportunities presented to Feyenoord. So I'm really quite comfortable, to be honest. I think the only way this loses is if Inter, if they're really on it and they take all the chances that they put together and they run up a score. Otherwise, I think 4 goals to lose this bet, it's a position I feel pretty comfortable with.
No, I agree with you, Sam. I think under 3.5 goals is the bet here. The only issue is that Inter look a little bit laggy, a little bit tired. I don't think they're as the sharpest they've been this season. And there will be changes to the formation. Lautaro Martinez is going to rest. Çalhanoğlu is going to rest. Zielinski is out for the season probably because of a calf injury. Inter are without a couple of wing backs. So there could be changes there. But I think that could disrupt Inter flow. In the first leg, Inter almost went at walking pace for the first half hour. And then they sealed it. And I think Feyenoord task here it's monumental. In the history of the Champions League, only 9 sides who have lost the first leg at home have went on to progress, and only 1 PSG last season after losing the first leg without the away goal rules. So again, it's very, very difficult to do so. Yes, Feyenoord do score goals, but they also concede goals on the road. Since 2021-2022 in the Conference League, when they were still under Arne Slot, they conceded 33 away goals, average 2.2 goals away per game. And as you mentioned, if Inter scores, the tie is of course over. There could be a possibility that this is a both team to score though. Inter have got a healthy lead. The last time they travel away in the Champions League won 2-0 against Benfica in the quarterfinal 2 seasons ago. The return match finished 3-3. Inter were never going to lose that game. They were 3-1 up and they let 2 goals in. As I mentioned, rotations, change of rhythm. I mean, that both teams to score is pace 2. It doubles your money. Or perhaps even the Asian handicap 1.5 for Feyenoord. Inter wins 2-1, for example. again, you do win that. It is an Inter side that recently hasn't put teams away so convincingly. But, coming from 2-0 down to win 3-2 against Monza would be a big boost. So I'm in your camp. I think he's an under 3 goals. But, I just want to flag the both team to score.
I was going to do the same thing. Obviously, BTTS now has landed in all of Inter's 9 matches in the Champions League this season, which is a crazy record, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but I mean, if you look at the numbers, they do align with this because Inter are only 8th for shots faced in the Champions League. However, it includes the league phase as well, and include games against Sparta Prague, against Young Boys, against Verna Zvezda, against Monaco. So eventually, I think they will revert to mean. In Serie A, they are conceding many more goals than they used to do last season because of injuries, because of fatigue, because it's very difficult to keep that same level. Last season, Inter had 22 clean sheets in Serie A. No one can repeat that year on year. And I think eventually, maybe for Inter, conceding those goals could be better rather than going with such a pristine record into a quarterfinals, possibly against Bayern Munich. I don't believe Inter going to keep 1 or 2 goals for the entire competition. So perhaps getting that out, and probably this could be the one where they let a goal in.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, BTTS has landed in all the finals away matches as well. So, something's got to give. But Sam's going another way. He's going for under 3 total goals in the Asian goals market. That's at 1.72 with a full unit on that. Just to confirm, 1 full unit, Sam? Yes. Okay, cool. Moving on. Jack, want to bring you in here. You're looking at Barcelona versus Benfica.
I am indeed, yeah. And this is a game I expected to have plenty of goals last week. And of course, their early red card probably scuppered that one to a certain degree. Barcelona looking to sort of kind of keep it tight and obviously ended up nicking a 1-0 win. So yeah, fair play to them on that. But my eyes have gone towards a striker, very much in-form striker as well, a player that was on my radar at the start of the tournament who seemed to be quite consistent. And I think he was generally under the radar because of the fact he wasn't really scoring goals. He wasn't prolific at all. That striker is Vangelis Pavlidis of Benfica. 1+ shots on target, over 0.5 shots on target is odds of 1.9. And I remember taking something very similar earlier in the competition. And then over recent weeks, it's not been anywhere near that. And I thought, yeah, that ship has sailed. We're not going to get a chance to go for that again. But I think possibly it seems here we're going to maybe one final bite at the cherry to try and take this line. It looks very, very attractive. The game that kind of sprung him onto the forefront of people's minds was that league meeting between these two, the league phase in Benfica, which was that incredible game for those that can't remember. It ended 4-5, so Barcelona winning 5-4 away, having been 4-2 down with not too many minutes left on the clock either. So it's absolutely incredible game. But he scored a first half hat-trick in that fixture. So absolutely incredible burst onto the scene as such. Prior to that night, he'd only scored 9 goals in 30 appearances for Benfica. So you can see why he kind of wasn't really the kind of player that was forefront of people's imaginations at all. So since then, he's absolutely caught light, including that meeting. He scored 12 in 12. He's only had 8 starts across that period of time as well. Let's say the currency we're dealing in here is shots on target. So he doesn't even need him to score. So it's been something that he's been excellent with across the campaign, certainly. He's got 7 goals, 2 assists from his 11 appearances, but 31 shots at goal, 17 on target in that period of time as well. That's an average of 1 every 48 minutes, so clearly well under what we're needing from him in this. He's had at least 1 shot on target in 9 of his 10 starts, and that first leg actually ruined that 100% record. Didn't have a shot on target in that first leg. Wasn't for a want to try, no. He had 6 attempts at goal. And just to say that Szczesny really did fine work in that first leg because he made 8 saves, also albeit none from Pavlidis. But Pavlidis is clearly the main focal point here, clearly the main goal scorer. And I think Benfica are going to go into this tie with the basis that, we know how to cause Barcelona problems. Obviously, scoring 4 goals in the home league phase game will give them confidence. Admittedly, 5 concessions won't. And also the fact they did cause them problems in that first leg. They did have plenty of sighters at goal. They did make Szczesny work an awful lot. And Barcelona have that ability to throw in a little bit of a wobbly performance. And if Benfica can get an early goal here, there will be a little bit of nerves, I think, throughout the stadium. So I think it's a real good spot the price really stands out to me for a player that I've kind of had a close affinity with throughout the tournament. So yeah, Vangelis Pavlidis. I'll avoid the obvious puns on orchestrating a comeback for Benfica. One or more shot on target at 1.9.
Very nice. Presumably, the state of the tie comes into your thinking, Jack. Like they have to chase a goal, don't they? They have to go to the Camp Nou and get something out of this match.
Absolutely, they need to score. That's obvious. I think they'll get chances. I think it's over the fact that we've seen them play Barcelona twice this campaign already, and we can draw lines for the fact that they can cause them problems. They know how to cause Barcelona issues, score against them, or certainly get in scoring positions as well. So yeah. Absolutely, they need to go and chase it, and at some point of time in the game, certainly. And I say he's their main focal point. That record he's got since scoring those that first half hat trick is quite eye catching. Really, and he scored at the weekend as well. He was rotated out of the side. They did rotate quite heavily, and then with about 25 minutes to go, they kind of brought 4 of their key men on, and he did score in added on time, albeit from a penalty. But when we're on players to have shots on target or score goals, getting the penalty taker on side is never a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. I do want to talk about the goals in this game because, as you said, we've seen these two sides play twice already this season. That 5-4, then that 1-0 in the first leg. Bet2 projections are at 3.48 total goals, 2.36 for Barcelona, 1.12 for Benfica. It's the highest expected goals total of any of the 8 games, which anyone who saw that game in the league phase probably wouldn't be a surprise to see the goal total that high. So, are you expecting a goal fest, Jack? Like, do you think maybe Barcelona just try and shut the game down, or is it going to be one where they think maybe the one goal isn't going to be enough because this Benfica side can hurt them?
Yeah, I don't think it's in their DNA to do that. I don't think how we've seen them play this season to do that either. There's been goals in their games. They've had circumstances this season where they've allowed lesser sides of Benfica to go and score against them and cause some problems. But I think when they've got the attack that they have got, the players that they have got, then they will look to go and kill this game off. They'll be confident if whatever this game, if it becomes a little bit of a shootout, they'll be confident they can win it and get through that way. So yeah, I don't see it being that they'll look to say park the bus and look to kind of seal this with a 0-0. And say if those goals, as Betsy had predicted there, if that comes to pass, then that adds strength to our elbow as far as Pavlidis certainly is concerned. You'd expect him to be amongst the goals if there are a few in this game.
Yeah, goal line with the bookies is 3.5. Barcelona's matches this season are averaging 4.67 in the Champions League, so
yeah,
could be some
ridiculous.
value. Yeah, get on that over 8.5. Jack Wright's first bet of the show is Vangelis Pavlidis, 1+ shot on target in Barcelona versus Benfica. That's a 1.90. Daniele, over to you for your first single.
I'm going to go for under 3 goals for Aston Villa against Club Brugge at 185. Again, I think the tie is pretty much over. It's very unlikely Club Brugge are going to get back. As I mentioned, only 9 sides in the history of Champions League have managed to overturn a home deficit in the second leg. And although Aston Villa perhaps they didn't deserve to win that game by 2 goals margin, they are really in the driving seat to qualify for the quarterfinals of the European Cup Champions League for the first time since 1982-1983, and to set up a derby against Liverpool. They've got experience on their side, Villa. They have won 9 of the last 11 European games at home at Villa Park, although the last defeat was last season 4-2 against Olympiacos. Of course, a result that will take this tie into penalties. But Villa at home, solid, strong, only 2 defeats at home all season, and only 1 by more than a goal margin, 2-0 to Arsenal when he was back in August. Is a Villa side that is much stronger after the January transfer windows with Marcus Rashford and of course with Asensio who score the penalty. Club Brugge have overperformed, have done really well, have knocked out Atalanta thanks to their stronger rhythm, but they're still the team with the lowest XG per game, 1.21 among the remaining 16 teams, and actually 44 in the Champions League if we also include the teams that take take on the qualifying round. So only 6-7 teams have done worse than them. If you look at the previous two meetings, yes, there have been 5 goals scored, but the average non-penalty XG for those two meetings was just 161. You need to take the penalties away, of course, and there were 2 penalties in both ties, and also there was an own goal. Very tough for Bruges. Never won in England. 2 draws, 14 defeats. Betsy projects a total goal of 2.7. I think back in the under 3 is probably the wise selection. As I said, I mean, if there are 3 goals, you just get your stake back.
Yeah, so another bet that's kind of being led by that first leg. Daniele sort of feeds into what the teams are going to be wanting to do from this second leg. So, as you said, Aston Villa have been very good at home in the past couple of months. So they seem to have recaptured that Villa Park form that we haven't really seen in the first half of the season. But looking at those new signings, do you think they're going to be factoring into this? Obviously, they're going to be wanting to nail down starting spots.
Yeah, no, they will be factoring in. I think Villa are stronger, but not necessarily that strong to score more than 3 goals against Bruges. I think, and yeah, they have improved considering that Villa. They've overcome a little bit of midweek blues, a good win at Brentford. They're still in the FA Cup as well. The prospect of a derby against Liverpool is exciting. We'll see who will be more affected. Liverpool's are winless in the last 2 at Villa Park, if I'm not wrong. So again, I think it will be definitely a very balanced one. But for this one, I think in the first leg, Bruges probably deserve to win. They have better chances, more chances. The own goal is unlucky, and the penalty is also unlucky. But in a way, justice was served because also when Bruges beat Villa, it was Tyrone Mings picking up the ball after a goal kick that he didn't really realize. So I think overall, these teams are of similar qualities. I would say Aston Villa stronger, of course, in the Champions League. They also faced stronger oppositions. But yeah, that suggests probably a low goal line.
Daniel, just a quick one for me on it. I watched the Brugge game against Atalanta, which I think everyone were expecting Atalanta just to turn up really and get the job done in that. And I thought they were exceptional. Was that mainly, would you say, Atalanta just fallen into a bit of complacency into that trap, or the stylistically suiting them?
No, I think stylistically, Bruges surprised them. They pressed them, and they were very, very intense from the first minute, and they were very good at mounting counterattacks. And what impressed me is that, especially in the first 25 minutes, 30 minutes of each game, every single counterattack of Bruges ended up with a shot, with a cross. So really, they didn't waste any opportunity to hurt them. They didn't overplay, they didn't overpass, and that was probably what surprised Atalanta. Again, it is a tie, the Atalanta one, that is based on episodes, because in the second leg, if Ademola Lookman scores the controversial penalties, he goes 3-2, and I think the comeback could be on. Bruges were on the ropes, but overall, of course, credit to Bruges. They were fantastic. It's a young side as well. There are a few 19 years old. There is Solis, which me and Jack know far too well from Norwich City. But apart from him, I think it is Jutgla, of course. I mean, look, Bruges are an interesting experiment. They do spend quite well. Last season, semi-finals of the Conference League against Fiorentina, very tight games as well. So, yeah, credit to them. But, yeah, I think Atalanta didn't expect that sort of challenge.
Yeah, I think Villa probably will be expecting Bruges to open up a little bit because they're going to have to, given the tie. But they are capable of scoring, Bruges, aren't they? They've scored in every away game in the Champions League so far this season. I think both teams to score. Both teams' scores landed in 7 of 11 of their Champions League matches. So, be interesting
Villa's
to see.
Defensive record's not great either, is it? They surprisingly kept a clean sheet against Brentford at the weekend. I think it was only their 4th in the Premier League this season. So, yeah, but maybe that's obviously a good sign that maybe they've found the magic formula. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, very interesting game. Very interesting second leg setup there. Daniele's going for under 3 goals in Aston Villa versus Club Brugge. That's a 1.85 with a full unit on that. Now, a pod first. Second half of the show is going to be based entirely on Bayern Munich versus Bayern Leverkusen, because we've got an Asian handicap line on each side and one bet that isn't connected. So, Jack, yours isn't connected. Do you want to go first? Have the first bite of this match?
Yeah, I'll get this one out of the way, and then I'll sit back and leave these two to fight it out. Yeah. I think this is this is a really exciting game, and obviously for bettors as well as a betting event, then it lends itself nicely to us because it's the kind of rare occurrence that in the Champions League we've got the form lines of both these two sides having played each other, obviously coming from the same league as well. In fact, this is their fifth meeting of the season, so we're absolutely able to kind of put this together to get a far better read on what we should expect from when these two sides meet than most of those other fixtures. So I like that side of it. Of course, Leverkusen's got a lot of work to do. That's probably an understatement, having suffered that 3-0 defeat in the first leg. But look, I think they've got a good record. Alonso is unbeaten in home ties against Bayern Munich. I think there's enough doubt about Bayern for me that would suggest that they'll have positives to go and attack them and look to get certainly a goal or two back to then put some doubt in Bayern minds. We look at that fixture recently where it was a stalemate, but Bayern didn't lay a glove on them, did they? Only 2 shots. But my focus is on cards. Over 3.5 cards, I think, is a really low line for two rivals now. It used to be a case of we had Bayern Munich and Leipzig, Bayern Munich and Dortmund, especially for over a long period of time, is without shadow of doubt now in Bundesliga is Bayern Leverkusen and Bayern Munich are the two main battlers in that league. So over 3.5 cards initially is a line that kind of piques my attention. We've obviously got the extra dynamic of the fact that this is obviously a massive game in European competition, the opportunity to get through to the quarterfinals. In a second leg of any cup competition, you also got the kind of dark arts that could come into it, a little bit of time wasting, all those things that are adding to the possibility of yellow cards, red cards, not necessarily the fact that we need it to be blood and thunder and tackles flying in everywhere. So for me, that does give a real good opportunity to go for what is really a pretty low line, in my opinion. So I'll leave the guys to go through the wheres and wherefores of the match itself. So I'll cut to the chase as far as the statistical data on cards in this game is concerned. Leverkusen's 6 of their last 7 Bundesliga games have seen 4 or more cards. Bayern, all of their last 7 on the road in Bundesliga have seen this line hit. There were 7 in the first leg, which included obviously 2 for one player and resulted in a red card. So for this particular bet, you're looking at a red card counting as 2. So that works very nicely indeed. And as I said, it's the 5th meeting in a row there that we've seen this line hit. There's been 4 or more cards in the last 5 meetings between these two sides across all competitions. And it was the 6th of the last 7 meetings. So it is a regular theme that we see at least 4 cards between these two sides. The referee, that's Slavko Vincic of Slovenia or Slovakia. I can't remember where he's from now. He's one of the Slavs anyway. But it's, so apologies for forgetting where he's actually from. But the one thing about him is he gets parachuted into different leagues, doesn't he? He's taken charge of Galatasaray versus Fenerbahce last month, showed 7 cards in that one. And he was also had the great honour of taking Olympiakos versus Panathinaikos in Greece. So he's a referee that is trusted and is kind of used to taking charge of games outside of his own country. That particular game in Greece, he showed just the 9 yellow cards and 2 red cards. So man in decent form. And let's say he's had and shown at least 4 cards in 6 of his last 7 meetings. He's averaging 3.57 in the Champions League, so it's relatively low. But I say this line's actually crossed in each of his last 5. So, we'll take that with what I think is a low line for 2 big rivals in a massive game, which could unravel or, say, could be very close. Whichever way this goes, I think 4 or more cards is a low enough line for me to attack to make it an official play.
Referee the Champions League finals, Slavko Vincic. 4 cards in that with Borussia Dortmund. Yeah. So makes sense. Yeah, good appointment. That'll be fair. Good appointment, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like he has turned up in different countries. He's obviously so that referee that they'll put into those potential powder keg kind of games. And by the looks of those last 2 that we've seen this season, not one that he will like let everything go. He's obviously happy to get his cards out and get involved, which is great for cards bettors.
He's Slovenian, by the way.
Slovenian. I do apologise. Yeah, that's bad of me.
All of our Slovenian listeners shouting at their iPods.
My bad.
It does look good. Why do you think that goal line, that card line is so low? Because as you said, it's landed in every meeting they've had already this season.
Yeah, do you know what? I generally can't answer that question, Dan. To be perfectly honest, I was shocked when I saw it. It's one of those things. Sometimes you go through, don't you, and look at the general lines. And I normally would suggest. I think that like I'm unlikely to be able to get involved in cards. I think like there was the first. It was certainly the Tuesday last week. There weren't many cards at all, were there? I think it was 4 was the most, and the rest were quite low. So whether it's just a reaction to that. But I think second legs tend to offer more opportunity for more cards for those reasons I've already mentioned. So yeah, generally I was shocked that it was at 3.5. I'd personally have at least a card higher for me, to be fair. So yeah, absolutely no idea why they've pitched it there. Possibly the fact they're looking at it being 3-0, and if Bayern do score a goal or two early, they would consider that game over. But that doesn't necessarily mean people won't be a little bit upset by that and take retribution.
Yeah, definitely. It does look very low. And as you said, a red in the first leg, a red when they met in the Pokal, wasn't it, back in December? Manuel Neuer got sent off. So if that happens again,
maybe,
then
maybe
certainly.
because there are 8 players at risk of suspensions and 2 in Bayern Munich's camp, but they are Sané and Gnabry, which you would not necessarily expect them to pick a yellow card. But yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, the line is low.
Yeah. Jack Wright's bet for Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern is over 3.5 cards. That's a 1.83 with a full unit on that. Now, here it is. Over 1.5 cards, I think, is the line for this pod based on what's about to happen. So we'll start off just to set the scene. Bayer Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich. Bayern obviously have that 3-goal advantage. Asian handicap for this match is set at +0. So right down the middle, an absolute pick 'em. Bayer Leverkusen at 2.04. Munich at 1.86. Now, as the home side, Sam, you're going for Leverkusen. Do you want to state your case first?
Yes. For me, Bayer Leverkusen 2.7 to win the game, Bayern Munich 2.5 to win the game. Yeah, absolute pick 'em. Favoured towards the visitors. And yeah, for me, there's a case to be made that the home side should be favourites here. They struggled in that first leg, really struggled at times, but there was a slight sense of misfortune for me in terms of like the eventual 3-0 scoreline. Leverkusen was second best, deserved nothing from the game in the end, but for Bayern to be going into the second leg almost out of sight, it feels a little bit harsh for Leverkusen. You had Kane scoring a world-class header to open the scoring, but if I'm Alonso, I want my centre-backs to do a little better in that situation, to be honest. Get in front of your man, make it a little bit more difficult, but take nothing away from Kane. It was a really good header. You had your goalkeeper coming up with what can only be described as an absolute clanger, where he dropped the cross, fell right to Musiala for the second goal. Then you had a Leverkusen red card on the 61st minute. And then you had a soft Bayern penalty 10 minutes later where Harry Kane flopped to the floor on the 71st minute. So with all of that going against you in one match, you are going to lose a game of football away in Munich against Bayern Munich. It's as simple as that. Bayern nearly made it 4-0 late on too, so it could have been even worse after some really good play from Musiala. So a nightmare from start to finish for Alonso's Leverkusen. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Leverkusen had one big chance in the game with Jeremy Frimpong, but Neuer saved that brilliantly. Probably should have scored, really. So yeah, now we're in Leverkusen for the final instalment of the tie, and I would argue all hope is not lost. Maybe Leverkusen won't progress. Bayern a 1.02 to qualify now, and that's probably partly a reason you can get over 3.5 cards, I would imagine. But Xabi Alonso in that home dressing room, in that home dugout, out of anyone in football, he's going to know how important that first goal will be and how capable his Leverkusen side have been against Bayern Munich in recent fixtures and at home. The first leg was the first time Bayern have ever got one over on Alonso's Leverkusen, and you got to remember this is a manager who was so heavily involved in Liverpool's comeback from 3-0 down at half-time in Istanbul against AC Milan. So there is no telling Alonso twice that this tie is not over. Leverkusen haven't conceded a goal at home in the Champions League this campaign. Like I said, they're really capable at home. They rarely lose at home under Alonso, if we overlook the weekend just gone, just a couple of days ago. But obviously that was in between, two massive Champions League ties, so maybe we'll just overlook that one. Bayern haven't won in Leverkusen since 2021, 4 years ago. The last time these two met, Jack touched upon it at the Bay Arena, we saw Bayern record just 2 shots at goal. And I don't imagine the visitors will be going all out this time around. There is really no need, like we mentioned in the Inter game, there's no need to be expansive, no need to allow Leverkusen that space to, to really inflict a bit of misery in transition. The game plan might be quite similar to that. Most recent head-to-head in the league, and defend, make it as difficult for Leverkusen to score 3 goals as possible. And that could mean we see limited Bayern opportunities in the final third. And the most appealing aspect of taking the home side on the handicap, other than it being odds against, is that Bayern Munich will be over the moon with a 0-0 draw. They'd be over the moon with a low-scoring loss. Leverkusen 1-0, Leverkusen 2-0, Leverkusen 2-1. That they would take all 3 of them and gleefully skip into the next round. So by Leverkusen, 0.08 handicap at 2.04.
Very interesting. Betsy is disagreeing. I mean, Sam, you're kind of doubling down a little bit, aren't you? Because you backed Leverkusen to qualify before that first leg. Still sticking with Xabi Alonso's men.
I just want to try and get my money back from from that bet, because that is lost, I think. But but no, I do fancy it. The one thing I missed out, which is gonna fuel Daniele's pick, is that Florian Wirtz has just been ruled out. I saw that whilst prepping for the pod. that was announced, maybe like an hour ago. So that is really not good. But still, I'll stick with it, I think.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I was wondering if you'd seen that. But bringing in Daniele here, Betsy is going for 1.4 projected goals for Bayer Leverkusen, 1.50 for Bayern, 2.9 total. So a slight edge to Bayern, and that's the side you're falling on at the moment, Daniele.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Bayern on the Asian handicap at 0, which pays less, of course, than the Leverkusen Asian handicap. 0 is 186. By the way, last Friday, before both lost at home at the weekend, which basically puts the title over in Bundesliga, before Florian Wirtz got injured, 15 goals and 15 assists this season for Wirtz, it was 192. The Asian line for Bayern Munich is gone down. And I think there is a sense that probably the bookies are feeling that the order might be restored in Germany. And yes, of course, over a month ago, Leverkusen battered Bayern Munich, and Bayern Munich were kind of forced to play for the 0-0. They're not set up to play for the 0-0, so I don't think they're going to go there and play defensively, because they're simply not built for that. Company still will want the high line, still will want the man-to-man marking Upamecano on whoever is playing. Probably Patrick Schick, who might play into Bayern's hands, is more of a point of reference, whereas if Leverkusen plays with a false 9, maybe they can activate the press a little bit better. But in the first leg, Bayern Munich were able to come out of the pressing trap as best as I've ever seen them this season. They were not able to do that against Celtic, who pressed them very well with Maeda and with Kuhn. In that game against Leverkusen a few weeks ago, they were basically boxed in. But they all of a sudden in the first leg, maybe because of Kimmich swapping position with Leimer, moving on the right-hand side, they were creating pocket of space. Musiala was finely tuned. They were finding space, and then they were able to switch the play to the 2 wings, Olise and Sane, and that's where really could produce the danger. Bayer Leverkusen remain a very good side. They've only lost 1 Bundesliga game in the last 22, but this season they've already conceded 46 goals in all competition, which is 2 more than last season with 14 games fewer. So it goes to show that that sort of high-intensity press and that sort of well-oiled machine, I mean, a bit like Inter, it's not easy to replicate it all the time. Last season, Bayer Leverkusen were exceptional, but remember how many games they won last minute from March onwards. It was pretty much the story. Patrick Schick turning up with a goal, scoring 3-2, 2-1, etc., etc. And then he took Atalanta and their high rhythm to just unpick them. I'm not suggesting Bayer Leverkusen have fallen off a cliff. They are second in the table. However, the expected points table suggests they should be even further below than Bayern Munich, 11 rather than 8. And probably that's where they do stand at the moment. Yes, Bayer Leverkusen have been good at home. They haven't conceded a single goal in the Champions League, but they've only scored on average 2.25 goals per game, which would not be enough to take them above Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich have scored 2.5 goals per match. Of course, the figure is skewed by the 9-2 win against Dinamo Zagreb. But can you see Bayern Munich not scoring in this one against a porous defense? And again, of course, the missing Florian Wirtz is going to be too much. After winning in the first leg, Bayern Munich odds for the Champions League went from 9 to 6.5, which I think is a very big drop. Maybe they are clicking into gears. I do believe that winning the Champions League is a step too far for Bayern Munich just yet. Maybe next season. But going back to Betsy, Betsy gives Bayern Munich a 39.9 chance of winning the match. The current odds are 250, which is a 40% implied probability. Leverkusen odds are 270, implied probability of 37, which is 1.7 higher than Betsy assessment. Therefore, I'm siding with Bayern Munich. It's closely aligned with our projections. It's basically the same, 39.940. Backing with the Asian handicap makes sense. Of course, you could back the draw. That could even be a draw. But yeah, I do fancy Bayern Munich to win it a low-scoring game.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Jack, as my fellow judge on the bench, which way you lean in at the moment in this case?
I'll reveal that I was very, very close to also having one of this bet as an official play, and I was going to go for Leverkusen. Yeah, I was. I just feel that a couple of things here, that last game where Bayern only had 2 shots. It's a very similar thing. Company wanted to close out Leverkusen from the title. That was their big opportunity, obviously, to get the point swing. And he decided that was how they were going to go about it. I say for them to have 2 shots, I think the XG that day was 0.05, something in that neck of the woods. They were not interested in even winning that game. So this one surely would be even more of a situation where they go, well, like we're 3-0 up. They would sign all day long right now for a 2-0 defeat and move on, get into the next round. Happy days. They would take that, especially because they're away from home. They aren't going to get the problem from the home fans as well. So that's an issue. Yeah, the first thing is the one kind of thing that does put a bit of a fly in the ointment. For me, I always call him wrong. Whenever I think he's going to have a good game, he seems to put in one of his very rare bad ones. So that takes that off the table for me. So I'm quite happy with that. The other thing that I would point out is, let's not forget, Bayern Munich are lost by 3 goals on the road in the Champions League, not once, but twice this season already. Barcelona and Feyenoord have both already done what Leverkusen need to do here. So if that's not in Xabi Alonso's team talk, as well as the historical been here and done it before myself scenario, then nothing will be. So they also lost to Villa 1-0 on the road as well. So they've not been bulletproof on the road, and I think Leverkusen can certainly take it. So to have Tino bet, then yeah, that would be the way I'd go.
Okay, Daniele, any counterpoints to that?
I mean, I think it makes perfectly sense, but I feel the balance of power has shifted. Bayer Leverkusen has not been at their best. And the decline, if we want to call it started last season in March, in April. I think they've gone in a downward trajectories. They draw far too many games at home. They've not been able to put teams away as they used to be. And the counter argument is they went to Liverpool and lost 4-0. So again, they're not quite at their level. That game in the Bundesliga was really interesting, but Bayern Munich couldn't get out of the pressing, but they seem to have found a way. Maybe, if there were more time in between the 2 legs, yes, but coming so soon and coming so suddenly, I'd expect the same narrative to continue. It's not impossible. I mean, we have seen Barcelona overcoming a famous deficit against PSG. We have seen Liverpool doing it against Barcelona the following year or 2 years after. So it's not impossible. And of course, I think Bayern Munich have got some frailties. Eventually, they have got mistakes in them. They all have, the defenders got mistakes because they play such a risky game as well. You only need one striker to win the header in the head, and then it's 1-1 as it happened against Celtic. But I think they got firepower, and those two wingers, Sané and Olise, they are fired up. They do create chances. Him, Sané, and also Kimmich are in the top 3 for chances created in the competition. Whereas Leverkusen are missing Wirtz, who create 25 chances in the competition, which is an astonishing number. Yeah, I think on the balance of power, I'll still go for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm leaning more towards Bayern in this one. I think that first leg domination across the pitch, every stat, Bayern absolutely dominated Leverkusen in that first leg. And yes, there was some fortune with some of the goals, but the balance of play, Bayern,
there is a
Bayern
factor
were by
here.
far the better team.
There is no Manuel Neuer, okay, which could be a factor. Manuel Neuer is key player, for Bayern Munich. Made a lot of great saves against Celtic, both legs. So that could shift the balance as well. But if you put it Manuel Neuer, Florian Wirtz, who's more decisive, who's more key? I think it's Wirtz.
Just to touch on the first leg as well, Dan, like Bayern Munich at home, European powerhouses don't lose knockout games in Munich. Like they should have been the aggressors. They should be racking up 10, 15, 20 shots, really. It should have been all Bayern Munich, and it was, and they won the game. But second leg, 3-0 up, away from home, against your sporting rivals from your own country. It's just, for me, the main thing for me is that I would never take a bet like this in Bayern Munich situation. I would never take Bayern to win here because they don't need to win. It's as simple as that. So I would just never go. I would never touch it because, like Jack said, like I said a minute ago, like a 1-0 by Leverkusen win is the best result in the world for Bayern Munich. So therefore, from a betting perspective, I just wouldn't touch Bayern Munich. I also agree with everything Daniele says. Like, I don't think Bayer Leverkusen are going to go through here. I think it's going to be fairly comfortable in terms of the end result. But just
Sam,
from a betting perspective, I just wouldn't touch it.
If the game is 0-0 at 70 minutes, who do you think has got more chances of winning it? Or is 1-1?
It's Bayern.
I think it's Bayern. I think it's Bayern Munich.
Bayern.
Yeah, 20 minutes to go. I think it's Bayern Munich. It's got more chance. Got better squad, larger squad as well. Got consider the injuries.
This Bayern squad last season was 5 minutes away from knocking out Real Madrid in the quarters. They've reached the quarterfinals every year for the past 5 years because there is so much ability and so much sort of maturity in this Bayern squad. They're used to this, and I don't think a 1-0 defeat is a good result for Bayern here because they want to step on the neck. It's an opportunity here. How dare you, Bayer Leverkusen, come and win the title last season? Go to league season unbeaten. Bayern want to reassert dominance over their rivals here. Surely
they'd love to beat them in their own backyard, but you can't say 1-0 by Leverkusen win isn't a good result for Bayern. It's a brilliant result.
I can't see Bayern going for that.
If you popped over to Bavaria right now, at the training ground, said to company, all the players, all of the higher ups in Munich, would you take a 1-0 loss in Leverkusen right now? Would you sign off on that? Every single one to a man would say yes, definitely.
Would Kimmich?
Yes.
I still go back to this league game. I still go back to the league game here and go that, yeah, I totally understand. You think Bayern Munich would have that mentality, but company set them up to not get beat, to effectively 0-0 because that more or less won them the title. And in this situation, so I still think it's like even more so the fact that they go, well, even if it is 0-0, if it is 1-0 defeat, then well, that does us. We're through. We're going to be the ones celebrating in their backyard at the end of the night. That's my take. Obviously, we're with different opinions, which football's all about, which is great. So it's really interesting to sort of be part of that debate.
It's going to finish 0-0, isn't it? And all of this is going to be completely
a waste of time.
Yeah, but no, I do get what you mean, Jack. Like that game, what was it, back in February, mid-February, wasn't it?
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I think. Since then, the situation has changed a little bit. Like any hope that Bayer Leverkusen had of getting the title is pretty much done now, isn't it? And as Daniele said, that the Leverkusen have been fantastic. They were amazing last season, but as Daniele said, there's been a downward trend. They haven't been the same side in the past 12 months that they were in the 12 months before that.
No. And Bayern have fallen apart in the Champions League more than one occasion already this season.
But I don't know. I can't go against Bayern when it comes to a tie like this. When the chips are down.
That Bayern win, I think, was the first time a German side had beaten Leverkusen since the start of last season, wasn't it? Obviously, that then happened again at the weekend, but that run was exceptional last season, and for this season as well. Really, they've done exceptionally well, especially at home. Done exceptionally well, but Bayern, obviously in the league, have just been that much better. Really, they've been pretty much faultless, haven't they? Until a heavily rotated side lost at the weekend to Bochum. But I think there's vulnerabilities there. So we've got counter arguments, and I think they're all valid. But we're going to find out, aren't we? The great news is we'll find out in 24 hours' time or so which side of the argument's the winner on this occasion.
Yeah, most certainly. 0-0 with 2 cards incoming, I think.
Give me 3 at least.
Yeah.
Give me...
We'll certainly see. No, I mean, originally we were going to say, we'll only pick one side, but I think as a very divided panel, I'm happy to sort of leave them there, leave both bets in there.
No, come on.
Oh, Sam,
let's pick
on.
One.
It's a divided panel, mate.
Well, if we have a unit on either side, then it's just
the pod is the loser.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, fine.
Come on, let's go Munich. Let's go Munich.
Okay. If you're happy to not have
if Bayern
wins,
wins, then the pod profits, and if it loses, then I'll quietly be quite pleased. So that's fine.
The message is going back between me and Sam. If Leverkusen win, we won't share them with you. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Me and Daniel's group chat is going to be absolute fire.
It's going to be popping.
It's going to be popping if Bayern get that result. All right. Just to recap, Jack Wright is going for over 3.5 cards at 1.83, and Daniele is going for Bayern +0 versus Leverkusen at 1.86, with a full unit on each. Sam is watching in anticipation. Let's get on with this week's pod treble. Nice little win for the pod treble last week. One of the bets was a push, but still a very positive result. 2 wins. I think it came in at 2.99 odds overall with the push. So nice little win there. Let's get another one here. Jack, do you want to kick us off with your selection for the pod treble?
Yeah, I will. It's a game we've covered already. Daniele covered it beautifully. Aston Villa versus Club Brugge. So I don't need to go into the nuances of the game itself. I'm just going with a player prop bet. It's a player to have at least one shot. That player got on the score sheet last week, actually. Maxim de Kuiper, over 0.5 shots at 1.72, which I think is an outstanding price. As I say, we've already talked about the fact that Brugge need to go for this that at some point in time. That second leg at Atlanta certainly stayed stuck well and truly in my mind about how well they counter-attacked. Coincidentally or unfortunately, and that was one game where De Kuiper didn't have a shot, but I think the game state in that at that point in time and how well they played in the second leg led them to be a bit more structured. He plays as a left-sided defender. But his record is sensational. 11 shots in 12 away league games this season, 1+ in 7 of those games. But in the Champions League, he's really, really strong. 11 starts, and he does normally get the full 90 virtually every game. He played 89 minutes in the game versus Sporting Lisbon. So that's the only one where he didn't get there till the final whistle. 11 shots he's had. He's had at least 1 in 9 of those fixtures as well. I would say the one he didn't was against Juve as well as Atalanta. So yeah, really strong. You look at the away games that he's had, and he's had at least 1 shot. Say 4 of those 5: Manchester City away, Celtic away, AC Milan away, and Sturm Graz away. And so he scored in the first leg. So just to have a shot of any description, I think 1.72 looks a really, really good price.
Yeah, looks good. And Sam, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to be following Jack in on something similar. I'm going for Club Brugge over 10.5 shots at 1.9. So Daniele's, like Jack said, covered it perfectly earlier. But I do feel a bit for Club Brugge. They were very good in the first leg, caused Villa problems, conceded that really early goal, pulled one back, and then collapsed in the final 10. And before that, at 1-1, Tyrone Mings made an unbelievable clearance off the line with about 20 minutes to go, which would have made it 2-1 to Club Brugge. And that just goes to show like how tight these games are and how fine the margins are between winning and losing in the Champions League. Will they come to Villa Park and get the job done? I really don't think they will. I would imagine Villa punishes them on the counter. Villa can sit in, preserve energy, and pick Club Brugge off over the course of 90 minutes. So that makes this really difficult for Club Brugge to navigate. And it's probably similar for Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen as well over in Germany. Club Brugge have scored in every away game in the Champions League this season. They scored 3 in Atalanta, I think it was, and they were good value for it. They were really quite clinical. They had 6 or 7 shots, scored 3 goals. They're a good team. I like them. They have enough to hurt Villa. We saw that in the first leg. They will be confident that the tie isn't over, although it's clearly a huge ask to overcome that 2-goal deficit. But in terms of players on the pitch for Club Brugge, as individuals, like this is cliche, but this is the shop window. Like if you can do it in a knockout tie at Villa Park against a Premier League team in the Champions League, then you are ready for the next step of your career away from Belgium. And that is probably the goal for most of them in that change room. So if I'm in that Club Brugge side and I'm in any of the positions near the final third, I'm putting on a show in the second leg. I'm having a pop at goal whenever possible. So hopefully that gets Jack's player shots angle over the line, and hopefully Club Brugge ends on over 10.5 shots at 1.9, which I thought was a really quite a good price for a team that's 2-1 down, 3-1 down, in the second leg of a knockout tie. Yeah, they've had a brilliant campaign, so why not go out swinging?
Yeah, looks good. And Daniele, close it off. Over to you for your selection.
We talked about this at length already. It's an Inter Feyenoord under 3 goals at 172. We talked about Inter defensive setup. Inzaghi has managed 60 clean sheet in the Champions League, 60%, Champions League clean sheet, which is the best record for managers with over 30 games. I think Feyenoord got a mountain to climb. A slight advantage for the visitors is that they didn't play at the weekend, so they could rest, which I think is unfair. I think UEFA should put a cap on it. Why should some teams should play and others don't? Inter engaged in a Scudetto race, but if you can do it, well, good for you. So maybe that could give them a little bit of advantage. Is a Feyenoord still very much depleted, and the goals have dried up since they've sold Jimenez to Milan. Inter without Lautaro, probably. Inter without Çalhanoğlu. Again, an Inter that looks a little bit laggy there. I think this could be an under 3.5 goals. Inter have conceded goals in first halves of seasons, twice against Monza, but only in other 5 occasions in all competitions before the break. Why not going for the 0-0 or maybe under 1 goal in the first half? But I stick with under 3 anyway for the pot.
Yeah, looks good. And if you put all of those bets together into a treble, you'll get odds of 4.88, which we will be backing for a quarter of a unit. Let's recap the singles, starting with you, Sam.
Inter Milan under 3 Asian goals at 1.72. Bayer Leverkusen 0.0 Asian handicap at 2.04. And I'll take the pod treble as well. Club Brugge over 10.5 shots at 1.9, all for 1 unit.
And Daniele?
I'm going to go for Aston Villa Bruges under 3 goals at 185. Bayern Munich has an handicap 0 against Leverkusen at 186.
And Jack?
I'm going in Barcelona versus Benfica. Vangelis Pavlidis, 1+ shots on target at 1.9. In Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich, over 3.5 cards at 1.83. And in Aston Villa versus Club Brugge, Maxim de Kuiper, over 0.5 shots at 1.72.
Yeah, and as Jack said, that's his selection for the pod treble, which also includes over 10.5 Club Brugge shots against Villa, which is Sam's, and Daniele's going for under 3 goals in Inter Milan versus Feyenoord at 1.72. Putting all those together into the pod treble, odds of 4.88, which we will be back in for a quarter of a unit. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly, only betting what you can afford to lose. Thank you as ever, Sam Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniele Fisichella.
Thank you.
And thanks to Jack Wright. Let's not leave it 5 months before your next appearance.
Over to you.
Well,
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much from me. We'll be back on Thursday with the weekend roundup.